Hey everybody, Jeremiah here. Hey, we had a wonderful parents meeting yesterday, worked through some cool dialogue, talking about some of the concerns we have with our kids, how the church can partner together, and I didn't get to finish off the last little bit of my notes here about vision and values. So I want to take a little time now to share why we do what we do. These are our values. You could say philosophy of ministry and how they play out in the ways we teach our kids, invest in our leaders, and learn to partner with you, parents, guardians. For years now, our Next Gen team have been passionate about deepening our church and family partnerships as we minister for the sake of the next generation. Darian, Janice, Megan, Mike, when he was with us in Youth Pastor, we love that we are in a strategic place where we get to influence those that influence the faith and future of the next generation. In case you didn't catch that, we love that we get to influence those that influence the faith and future of the next generation. And these are our volunteers, the team we work with. That's each one of you. You might be hearing this and saying, I don't really have influence the next generation. I'm pretty sure about that. You do. You've influence whether you believe it or not. A box of donuts, gives you influence. A welcoming home for a sleepover gives you influence. Driving your kids' friends to practice gives you influence, etc. Whether you use it or not, it's still influence. But you have to decide, how am I going to leverage this influence? And we on our staff team here, we want to come alongside you and help leverage the influence we both have to influence our kids and teens, those ones that we serve. We want to also leverage the influence we have at South Abbey for the leaders that lead our kids and our teens. Right? Those people investing in them as volunteers. We want to be intentional, not just to influence them in any way whatsoever, but influence their faith and their future. We think that faith and future are connected, and sometimes as churches, I'll be honest, we don't do the best job we can at connecting these two ideas, faith and future. Well, when I chat with my neighbor about what is happening at our church, I talk to him often. He's a guy who's on a journey. I wouldn't say he's nailed it as following Jesus as his own. He says this, though. He says, what he's discovered is that if change isn't connected with faith, it's limited in what it can do. Right? If change isn't connected with faith, it's limited in what it can do. And I thought this was very insightful because this is what we believe, isn't it? That faith in Jesus transforms our outcome. We believe that if we can make this connection between faith and future, we will set kids up with a different perspective, having Jesus at the center of their lives as they go through life. And we're always striving to find ways to capture the imagination, right, of a generation to see and love Jesus. We're trying to be creative in these things. And I believe that anyone working on the front lines and serving the next generation are people that have a different kind of spiritual compass. So listen to me on this one. I believe that those working with babies, kids, and teenagers have a different access point to understand how God works. This is your kids' leaders, and each of you, as you try your best to have your kids' journey with Jesus, seems difficult. You might say, you don't know my kid. There's no special access to understanding God there. But hey, kids aren't the same. And I want you to be encouraged in the mess you might be wading through, and hear what Jesus says about this. There was a time in the Bible, Mark 10, Matthew 18, Matthew 19, Jesus was with his disciples and children tried to come to him. Parents were sending children to Jesus. And the disciples dismissed the children. Get out of here. Jesus doesn't want to see you. In this amazing story, Jesus defends them and says, no. Bring them to me. So listen to the amazing statement Jesus makes. And please, if you've missed this before, listen to the power of Jesus' words. He says this, if you want to see the kingdom of God, you have to become like one of these. And then he said, when you welcome one of these, you welcome me. And in case no one told you this recently, this is what you do. This is what my leaders do. You welcome kids. You welcome children. You welcome teenagers. And just to be clear, according to what Jesus says, when you welcome kids, you welcome God. You're welcoming Jesus. And so when anyone asks, Jeremiah, what do your leaders do at the different programs, Kids Quest, clubs, youth, I tell them, my leaders, they welcome Jesus. And anytime we're looking for leaders and they give us some stage time to recruit for kids, men, or youth, I want you to hear, I know this is the big church where adults show up, but when you work with us, you work where Jesus shows up. So why does this matter then? This matters because when we show up, kids, children, teens, it reminds us that working with Next Gen is about having Jesus show up in their lives. And I truly feel it is so easy for us as adults to get distracted. It's just as easy as it was for the disciples 2,000 years ago to forget what really counts and matters in life. And this is partly because we can get overwhelmed with the complicated issues of our day and age. And it wouldn't take long, I'm pretty sure, for us to make a pretty comprehensive list of the issues that are around us, because it's complicated in Abbotsford, in BC, in Canada, in the world today. The other day I had a teen I took out for lunch, and he asked me, has it always been this complicated in the world and in the church? I said, hey, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Can you flesh that out a little bit for me? And here's some of the conversation we had. This is the gist of it. Is it wrong that I never want to invite my friends to church because all I see in my parents and their friends is saying they love Jesus, but they don't live it out? I'm finding it hard to trust the truth they believe in, that it actually transforms their lives. And I would never want my friends to see this is what a Christian looks like. I'm tempted to go find a truth that actually transforms lives. Oh, that's complicated. And I wonder what you would suggest I could have shared with them as I chatted with this young leader of volunteers. I told them it's always been complicated, it just looked a little bit different. I said, when I was younger and when I talk with people currently that are a little bit older than I am, I really realized that we've all wrestled through time with each other over God, church, and theology. But we continue to meet and gather because there are two things we are passionate about and we passionately believe. Number one, we believe in Jesus. Number two, we believe in the next generation. And in this belief, following Jesus will radically impact someone's life. And I want to briefly share our values, the ideas we communicate to our Gen Z and Gen Alpha. This is what we believe as we teach them in our times together. We believe first in God. We believe in God's Son, and we believe Jesus is who he says he was, and that he stepped onto the planet to rebuild a broken relationship with us. Second, we believe that we are made in God's image and a clear reflection of God's image that we can see and show others. Third, you want another reminder that God exists, not just that we're made in his image? Just step outside. Go for a walk. Look around at these beautiful spaces we find ourselves in. God uses his beautiful creation to show us how amazing it is, but also reminds us of our intrinsic worth. Fourth, we believe in the power of the church. We teach about the historical church where people actually belong to each other. Fifth, God's message is basically summed up in one commandment. And Jesus said this, it's about loving me, it's about loving your neighbor. Sixth, we're given a wonderful purpose to demonstrate this love. And by the way, if our actions or theology or conversation prevents others from seeing Jesus in us, then we probably need to remember that Jesus was always demonstrating with his actions to his disciples that his love for the unlovely is what makes them loved, is what makes us loved. 7, we love this idea that God's character can be trusted, is always trustworthy, and the most powerful thing that we can do, you, me, our leaders for the next generation, is helping them understand the difference in simply arguing a point and trusting Jesus with their lives. 8, we love to talk about God's story, the good news, the gospel, and how it's for everyone, every single person. And 9th, lastly, the Holy Spirit is always working and always transforming us to be more like Jesus. Well, these are the 9 things we want to continually invite a generation into and continually explore and expand for them. I want to share a little personal story about these 9 here. Well, I'm so thankful for a wise friend that shared with me when I was a youth pastor. He said that the goal of these 9 things, and they weren't all 9 at that point, isn't this. That my job as a youth pastor isn't to help this generation become certain they are right about everything they believe. Track with me here, because that's impossible and exhausting. And someone else will come along and talk them out of what you've taught into them, what I've taught into them. No, my job as a youth pastor at that time was to help them understand that the goal isn't to help them be right, but the goal is to be confident in someone as they trust to follow them. And we believe that's Jesus. Here's the reason I say this, because when I go back to the list, right, this list of 9 things, every one of you thinks you know what's right about these things. And I feel genuinely you are right. But here's the other part of this. You also have very different opinions on these things. We could talk about how the Spirit of God works, for instance. And depending on our backgrounds or denominational nuances, right? We're MB here, but not all of you come here. We could very quickly begin arguing about these good things. Some of us maybe get nervous talking about these things. Let's not do it. Well, others say, lean in, let's discern together. That's how we're going to get to the bottom of it. Others will say, I'm not sure yet. We got to take our time. We're going a little too fast. We have our styles that we prefer. We know how we like to do church. But our goal as we lead the next generation is not certainty. Our goal is being confident enough to follow Jesus. In the midst of any storm, we don't say, I'm right, but I will follow you, Jesus. Years ago, I decided when it comes to faith in this generation, this plays out still from youth pastor 10 and a half years ago till now, is that I'm not going to try and convince them of the things they believe, but together we will learn how to stay confident in following Jesus. I said if we try the first one, it will exhaust us, where the second one will energize us. The first one is this idea that I'm trying to get them to the place where they can argue something, be right. The second one is trying to get them to follow someone. And the beauty of this family of faith that we're in is we can argue about all of these things and agree or disagree, but it should never disrupt the fellowship we have with each other as we follow Jesus and the mission we have of making disciples of all that are out there. Hey, if you're watching this with somebody, or if you're not, just pretend you are. I want you to look at your neighbor, look at the family member, bring someone in the room and say, hey, I'm not certain you're right about everything. Right? A little funny. And I want you to look at your neighbor, or that person, or pretend you are, and with confidence, because this is what I truly believe, say, I am confident that we can follow Jesus together. That's right, I'm confident we can follow Jesus together. And this is the goal in family ministries, to equip the next generation to follow Jesus and to do it together. Well, hey, sorry I wasn't able to finish this for those that came to our parents' meeting. So thankful for anyone who is watching this afterwards. Pass along your friends. This is what we're about here at South Abbey Church. We want you to be encouraged, inspired. Give me some feedback. What are your thoughts on these things? Anyways, love you guys. Proud of you. I work in just the best place there ever was. Peace.